Let me introduce a new text for most of us tonight, an incredible apocalypse that comes out of Armenia, attributed to Enoch, and it's called The Vision of Enoch the Just. I just became acquainted with it this week. I simply had to retranslate it or redact it, and it's chock full of prophetic clues. So here it is. The Armenian Enoch, or the Vision of Enoch the Just.
You are about to experience Jackson Snyder Presents, direct from the Vero Essene Yahad, a Hebrew Nation radio original program. JSP is a variety show seeking out Jewish and Christian origins, religion, theology, and history, and doing so in a fashion that is both educational and entertaining. Welcome to Jackson Snyder Presents.
The Vision of Enoch the Just, an Armenian apocalypse. At the 6th hour of the day, a man appeared to me by Mount Lebanon, and his appearance was like a flaming fire. And he said to me, "Listen, O man, to what I relate to you that I heard from Yahweh Sabaoth." And I stood all the night over by the mountain, on the eastern side, and my face was turned westward toward the sea before the cherubim. And look, above the sea there was a haughty eagle flying, and it had 8 wings and 3 heads, and it stood above the sea and headed southward. The sea was stirred by the south winds, its high waves as though to drown the eagle, and the waves beat upon its wings. Their noise resembled that of horses running toward the northeast. And look, the head of a dragon appeared with 9 eyes, and its feet were like lion's claws, and it was running like a leopard. It overtook the eagle between the wind and the waves, and opened its mouth to swallow it. The eagle cried unto El Elyon, but its cries were not heard on account of its violence. Then the eagle turned its face and fled to the ends of the north, but there it found no rest. Then the dragon devoured all the people and burnt them as with fire, but its belly remained empty. It held the dominion of the known world for 16 times 6, that is, 96 years. And at the end of that time, the eagle, driven on by the south wind, returned to the same place with mighty power to resist the dragon. And the head of the dragon lay upon an ash heap, and the eagle stood on a chariot with white horses. It caught the dragon on the top of the ash heap and beat it violently. And the dragon had its former strength no more, and its head was scattered throughout all the tribes. Then white horses descended upon the ash heap and scattered its dust toward the skies until there was no more light upon the land, only darkness and horrifying mist. And 6 men sat each on a throne. 3 of them were dark and unfavorable to behold. 2 were light and fine to see, and the 6th was oppressed and afflicted, mourning for his wives and children. And all of them distrusted the dragon lying on the ash heap, and they said, "A fire will come out of that dragon and consume the land." Afterwards the cherubim cried out to speak to me. "Oh, man, did you understand that vision?" I said, "No." Then a cherub said to me, "Stand up and hear me, and I will tell you the meaning of it all. The swift flying eagle that you saw, that had 8 wings and 3 heads, is the ruler of the Romans and the Greeks. And since he stands above the sea, he will be as strong as iron. And for as much as the eagle chases all other birds and strikes and throws them down, in the same manner the ruler of the Romans will consume all the sovereignties of the known world. And through the power of the El Elyon, He will entrap them like birds of the skies in a snare. None will be able to resist him. And since he looked southward, he will prevail against the people of the south. And since the sea was agitated on account of the violent wind, and the waves beat the wings of the eagle so as to drown it, in the latter times, during the days of these rulers after the 108th Jubilee, the last people of the south, the children of Ishmael, will live on the seashore of Arabia, will stand up. They will rise against the land and they will conquer it. They will fight on the shore to destroy the power of the Romans, but they will not succeed, because this realm has the guardian seat of the great ruler. Though wars and storms of evil should arise against it, such will not be able to drown it, for it, according to the prophecy, will be superseded, then followed by an eternal realm, as it is diminished for the reproving of its sins, until the sins of the southern people may be full. The noise of the waves, like the sound of horses galloping from the countries of the east and north and toward the west, signifies that the greatness of the tribes will be overcome, laid waste to dust by Ishmael's children. There will be no rejoicing in that land, rather clamorings of weeping, crying, and tumult. And since the waves beat upon the wings of the eagle, Ishmael's people will smite and defeat the troops of the Romans and of the north, but they will not be able to exterminate them. And since the head of the dragon lays on the ash heap between waves and wind, having 9 eyes, feet like the claws of a lion, and power of running like a leopard. It is the first prince of Ishmael's people, its strength like the waves rising over the land. Since it had 9 eyes and feet like those of a lion, after it rises, 9 rulers will conquer the land, breaking it to pieces as a lion's prey. Since it overtook the eagle between wind and waves, and opened its mouth to swallow, the dragon will rise against the Roman ruler, harass him, and take his power. Since the eagle cried out to the El Elyon and was not heard, it means that Elohim forsook it because of its iniquity. It will not be able to resist the dragon. Rather, fear and terror will dishearten and crush it, and its slave, whose name is the beast, will take his realm and destroy its strength, and it will flee, escaping to the uttermost end of the north, and there make an alliance with the prince of the north. The name of that ruler is Bergia. And since the dragon ate up all the peoples and burned them as with fire, yet nothing remained in its belly, in that time the rage of the southern people will be even more burning against the land. For as the fire consumes and destroys everything to ashes, yet is never satiated, so will the dragon be tormented by wanting riches, and will not be satisfied. It will devastate the land by the sword, fire, and captivity, and until its sins are completed and its iniquity full, there will be 96 years. And since the eagle returned from the north with great strength against the dragon to take possession of the same location by the command of the El Elyon, so those who rose up against it will perish before his presence. And since the head of the dragon was scattered throughout all countries, El Elyon destroyed it with the sword, fire, and captivity, and will have no pity on their wives and children until they are cut off, consumed, and the sovereign's wrath is accomplished on them. And because it, without compassion, destroyed the people of Elohim, its iniquity will return upon it twofold. It will suffer hunger, thirst, and nakedness, and will find no comfort. Its body will be burnt by the sun, and in its last poverty it will not find clothing for its nakedness, but they will cover it with a sheepskin. And since the white horses descended upon the ash heap and scattered it, and the dust was thrown up and was scattered skyward, they, the Roman troops, whose fury is like that of horses harnessed to chariots, will scatter the greatness of the people of the south throughout all the remnants of the tribes. Like the ashes from a furnace, they will be spread all over the land. And since the dust went up and was scattered skyward, it is the smoke of the contemptuous wrath of the people of the south, through whose vengeance will come the very end of the land. And since there was no light upon the land, only darkness, for the people's ungodly works hold back the light from all created beings, as the morning light and dew fall on the land to make the plants rejoice. Elohim's mercy, that enlightens and comforts those whose hearts are crushed, is also held back. And since 6 men each sat on a throne, 3 of which being ugly to look upon and dark, the time left for the people of the south is revealed. 3 chiefs of tribes, that is, 3 times 30 equals 90 years, had 6 more years of their dominion, that is, 96 years. Great suffering will be increased. The fields will lose their fertility. The springs will decrease. The land will become arid. The plants will be unfruitful. The woods will be dried up. The cedars will fall and the flowers will fade. There will be flaming, consuming fire. The air will be turned to smoke. The birds will die. The fishes will diminish. The animals and the wild beasts will be destroyed. The rain will produce no fertility, and frost and hail will cause ravages. People will not beget children. They will be sterile and short-lived. There will be need for everything. On account of the evil doings of men, the land will grow old and will cease to bear. And those who live there will produce none of the fruits of life. So the land will not conceive through the virtue of her seeds, and its womb will not put out the flower in putrefaction and filthiness. And from skies will drop down fire and destruction upon sea and land. Then, after the suppression of the south's dominion, the anger and wrath of Yahweh will be fulfilled against them all. Afterwards, since you saw 2 seated men, light, handsome, ruddy, and graceful, the Romans will destroy the southern people. They will smite them first on the sea, and the sovereign will cause a storm to rise, and drown them before their ruler trusts in Elohim and ascribes victory to him. Again, their ruler will smite them on land 6 times, and the remnant will he drive away, taking their wives and children captive to Greece and Sicily. And through the command of El Elyon he will make shalom. Then will he live 12 years more, and peacefully pass to another life. Then another peaceful ruler will rise. His name is Fuvive, translated as Tiber. He will rule 33 years. There are the 2 tribal chiefs so light and fine to look on, and in their days will be peace and abundance, and people will forget all the former evils and tribulations. There will then be fertile fields, and an abundance of products for the barn and winepress. Then the earth will give forth her produce as before, to the joy of men. The fields will abound with corn and wine, and the skies will pour down fruitful rains. There will be no more hail, neither will fire fall from the skies, nor will there be thunderstorms. 1 corn seed will give 100 ears of corn, and 1 branch of the vine, 1,000 branches of grapes. And upon the mountains will be grapevines, fine-branched and laden with fruit, and the olive trees will produce 7-fold to the people's joy. And they will rest and forget their former tribulations. Then will appear a comet, with a tail bursting toward the east, which means that there will be more shalom in those parts. The Jews will gather together in Mesopotamia and face the country of Palestine, while Damascus will become a dwelling place of wild beasts. And in regards to the 6th man, who was mourning for his wives and children, he represents the end of the lifetime of the known world. For after the death of the peaceful ruler, whose name is Tiber, a ruler of low birth will arise, named Hertzik, and his dominion will be despised, and he will rule 3 years. In that time, the kingdoms will be in anxiety, and the known world will be divided into 10 divisions. For then the ruler of the north will strike the people of the south, captivate them, carry them away. Along with them he will also captivate the ungodly prince named so young in age, born in the town of Bishana, and take his mother with him. He will go to Byzantium, and there he will dwell 30 years, and learn the science of philosophy among the Greeks. And he will distinguish himself in this endeavor more than all the others. He will be honored by the rulers, and become a general, performing acts of valor in war, and receive awards from the ruler. Once the kingdoms are divided into 10, the known world will not cease from being agitated by wars. And during 5 years there will be famine upon the earth, and the skies will hold their rain, and the earth will not render produce. The rivers will dwindle, the sea will stink, and wild beasts and animals will perish. In the towns, people will fall down and die, and there will be no one to bury them. Gold and silver will be despised, and there will be no one to gather them. Even the beauty of women will be disdained. This is the time of the 6th chief, mourning for his wives and sons. And since you saw the fearful who said, "A fire will come out of the dragon who will burn the earth," this means that after the death of the ruler Hertzik, the sovereignties will be in confusion, and in a month will be divided into 10. And after the first 50th, the rebel will reign and prevail against the 10 rulers. He will strike 2 of them, and will undo and overthrow the dominion of the 10. Seizing upon the sovereignties, he will march against Palestina and the dominion of Ishmael's children. He will return victorious. For with many auxiliaries of the people of the south, he will go against Palestina and strike it. His anger will burn like that of a serpent throughout all the known world, and he will call himself God, speaking proudly before the El Elyon, and all the ungodly will worship him. That is the fire that came out of the dragon and burns the known world. For in that time, no righteousness will be found in people, but they will all be like thorns to be burned up with their own iniquities. With the same fire, vengeance will be kindled among people, as well as famines, plagues, conflagrations, false signs and wonders, and by these he will frighten his worshippers, and will persecute and kill the El Elyon set apart, who do not consent to worship him as El Elyon. The mercy of the El Elyon will be upon them that fear him. The more they are tortured, the more they will be made glorious, like gardens that through living waters become bright and blossom, some white, some red, some purple. So they will be glorified through divers sufferings and torments. And the days of the dominion of the rebel will be 1,000 265. After this, a pious ruler will arise in Rome, and all the remnant of the faithful will gather together to him, and he will rise and take the field against the rebel and his soldiers, upon whom Yahweh himself will take vengeance. For a fire will come down from the sovereign, and will destroy the rebel and his troops, and will devour all sinners. The fire will not approach nor destroy the servants of the El Elyon, but they will walk in the midst of the fire as if in a rainstorm. In 7 days it will consume all the known world that is corrupted by the people's evil works. It will burn mountains and hills, melt the stones, dry up springs and rivers, and will entirely consume everything. After the 7 days, the sign of the cross will appear in the east, luminous as the light, starting on the 6th day at the 3rd hour, and will remain 2 days. And on the 3rd day in the morning at daybreak, the sovereign will come with his set-apart angels to reward his set-apart people and to reprove the unrighteous of the earth. The archangel will blow the trumpet 3 times, and all kingdoms will arise to present themselves before the sovereign. Then they will bind the rebel and his troops, and those who worshipped him and his idols, and they will carry them as fuel to the unquenchable fire and sleepless worm, into Sheol of Hephaestus, to the southwest of the great ocean, with burning sulfur and pitch that never may be quenched. All sinners will be burned. Then all the set-apart people, together with the angels, will abide before Elohim, the El Elyon, always, reigning, rejoicing, and glorifying Elohim, and forever and ever. Amen. And that is the vision of Enoch the just in its entirety. Did you notice all those clues to the interpretation in there? The wheels are turning in my mind. I know a little bit about Roman and Parthian history, and I do believe we're speaking primarily of Rome and Parthia here, the two empires on either side of what the vision calls Palestina. That area became known as Palestina after the conquest of Rome in about 60 BC, still known that way today. So there's a dragon in there. Dragon's got eyes. There's lion claws in there. There's also a bunch of names in there, and also place names, some of which I've already looked up. There are descriptions of rulers that in several cases look very much like some of the Roman Empire rulers, maybe even Tiberius, somebody that looks a lot like Caligula, somebody that looks a lot like Nero, somebody that looks a lot like Diocletian, and even Constantine. I think this covers a lot more territory than simply the 1st century, but I believe that it covers pretty much the same thing as 4th Ezra, the Revelation, and now the vision of Enoch. There's a lot of overlapping in there. And what we could have as well is some history of some people in this prophecy that doesn't jive with what we think some of these people did historically. It seems like even Marcus Aurelius finds his way in there, as well as some of the kings of the Parthians. Certainly there's a destruction of the land of the south, which has to be Israel, Arabia, Syria, the north being Italy, and the high north being maybe even Britain. The mystery is history. But a little bit will give you some clues, and we can go right through this and write down several of the symbols there, and I am positive we'll be able to place some of this in history. So I'm kind of chomping at the bit. The wheels are turning in my mind. I want to try to interpret this if I have any time to do that. In the meantime, perhaps some of you know a little about history of the 1st century in Israel, Judah, Rome, Parthia, maybe even Ptolemy's Egypt, and we'll want to start putting some of these clues together. In fact, if you look at the show notes, I will put this new translation of the Vision of Enoch the Just out there so you can find it, download it, and look it up yourself at veroyahad.org. Well, my friends, that's enough for now. We'll get back on that interpretation later. I think it would be good for you and I to keep in mind the last few sentences of that prophecy, which predict a great world leader that is benevolent, a worshiper of El Elyon, and one who commands the technology in such a way as to take care of the restoration of creation. Yahweh bless you. Thank you for listening. Amen. You have been listening to Jackson Snyder Presents on Hebrew Nation Radio.